Money has a way of turning family into strangers. I learned this truth while crouched behind our kitchen door, listening to my parents plot the death of my future. Emily's startup is our best chance at securing our retirement, my mother said. Lauren will understand. My father's sigh carried the weight of resignation. But her college fund, we promised. Emily has real potential. Lauren can take out loans or go to community college. Sometimes we have to make hard choices. I pressed my palm against my mouth, trapping the bitter laugh that threatened to escape. Of course they'd choose Emily. They always did. My perfect older sister with her business degree and startup dreams, while I was just Lauren, the backup child, the contingency plan. We should tell her tonight, my father said. No, let's wait until after Emily's presentation on Sunday. Lauren tends to get emotional, and I don't want anything spoiling Emily's big moment. I slid down the wall, my legs giving out beneath me. 10 years of straight A's, debate team captain, early acceptance to Princeton. None of it mattered. They were going to take my college fund, everything I'd worked for, and hand it to Emily like it was nothing more than spare change. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Grandpa Henry. Still coming over to help with the garden? I typed back a quick yes and forced myself to stand. My legs felt wooden, disconnected from my body. As I grabbed my keys from the hook by the door, my mother's voice drifted out again. It's not like Lauren has any real plans. Emily's the one with vision. The keys bit into my palm as I clenched my fist. No real plans? I'd been planning my escape from this family since I was 12. Now they were making sure I'd stay trapped here, watching Emily succeed while I withered in her shadow. I drove to my grandparents' house on autopilot, my mind racing through calculations. Without my college fund, Princeton was impossible. Student loans wouldn't cover enough. My part-time job at the library barely paid for gas. Grandpa Henry was waiting on the porch, his weathered face creasing into a smile. There's my favorite gardener. I tried to smile back, but something must have shown on my face because his expression shifted. What happened, sweetheart? They're giving my college fund to Emily, I said, the words tasting like ash. For her startup. They haven't told me yet, but I overheard them. His face darkened. Karen and Michael are doing what? Apparently Emily has real potential and I can just take out loans. I yanked a weed from the flower bed with unnecessary force. Or better yet, settle for community college. Like hell you will. Grandpa Henry's voice had an edge I'd never heard before. Your grandmother and I didn't spend 40 years building this family for them to throw away your future on Emily's pipe dreams. I looked up at him, dirt crumbling between my fingers. What can we do? It's their money. It's their... A slow smile spread across his face, reminding me that before he was my gentle grandfather who loved gardening, he'd been a corporate lawyer who never lost a case. You let me worry about that. For now, focus on playing your part. Let them think you don't know anything. Why? Because sometimes, Lauren, the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about getting ahead. He patted the soil around a new rose bush. And trust me, by the time we're done, your sister's startup won't be the only thing blooming this spring. I stared at him, understanding dawning slowly. You have a plan. I always have a plan. He winked. Now, help me with these roses. We've got work to do, and not just in this garden. For the first time since overhearing my parents, I felt something other than despair. It was small, sharp, and dangerous, like the thorns on Grandpa's prized roses. But it was also powerful. It was hope. The family dinner table had become a war room, with Emily's startup plans spread across it like battle maps. My calculus homework balanced precariously on the corner, pushed aside for the third time this week. Lauren, could you get more coffee? Emily didn't look up from her laptop. Mom, these projections show we could triple our market share by Q2. I poured the coffee, watching the steam rise. 3 days had passed since I'd overheard my parents' conversation, and each moment felt like walking through a minefield of lies. That's wonderful, honey. Mom leaned over Emily's shoulder, beaming. Michael, come look at these numbers. Dad shuffled over, his reading glasses perched on his nose. Impressive. Though I'm not sure I understand all these technical terms. That's why you have me, Emily said with her trademark smile. Trust me, this is going to change everything. I set the coffee pot down harder than necessary. I have a calculus test tomorrow. Could we maybe clear some space? Oh, sorry, sweetie. Mom gathered a few papers, creating a tiny island amid Emily's sea of documents. But isn't it exciting? Your sister's going to be the next big tech entrepreneur. Yeah, exciting. I opened my textbook, pretending to study while watching Emily's face. She was good. Really good. If I hadn't caught her practicing her investor pitch in the garage yesterday, repeatedly stumbling over explanations of massive losses, I might have believed her act too. Actually, Emily said, closing her laptop, I wanted to talk to everyone about something important. She took a deep breath. I think I should move back home for a while, to focus on the business. Mom clasped her hands together. Of course, we can convert the study. My study room? I interrupted. Where I do all my schoolwork. Well, you could use your bedroom, Mom said. Emily needs a proper office space. The pencil snapped in my hand. Right. Because my academic future isn't as important as Emily's business venture. Lauren, Dad warned, but his voice held no real authority. No, it's fine. Emily reached across the table, touching my hand. I know it's a lot to ask, but think of it this way. When the business takes off, I'll be able to help with your college tuition. The irony of her words felt like acid in my throat. I pulled my hand away. I'm going to Grandma and Grandpa's. Now? Mom frowned. It's a school night. Grandma's teaching me to make her special lasagna. The lie came easily. For the family dinner on Sunday. Emily brightened. Perfect timing. I'm presenting the full business plan then. The whole family should be there to celebrate. I grabbed my keys and textbook, leaving the rest of my homework scattered across the table. As I drove, my phone buzzed with a text from Grandpa Henry. Stopped by your sister's office today. Interesting what you find in public records. My heart raced. I pressed the accelerator harder. Grandma Martha opened the door before I could knock. In the kitchen, she said, her eyes knowing. Your grandfather's waiting. Grandpa sat at the kitchen table, a folder open before him. Did you know, he said without looking up, that your sister's company hasn't paid their employees in 6 weeks? What? He slid a document across the table. 3 lawsuits filed last month, plus an eviction notice for their office space. She's not just failing, Lauren. She's burning through money trying to cover it up. And my college fund is next. The reality of it hit me fresh, along with Mom and Dad's retirement savings. Grandma set a cup of tea in front of me. The question is, what are you going to do with this information? I stared at the documents, my mind racing. Sunday. She's presenting everything to the family on Sunday. If I expose her, then you'll humiliate her, Grandma said softly, and possibly destroy your relationship with your parents. They destroyed that when they decided my future was worth sacrificing for her lies. The words came out sharp, surprising even me with their intensity. Grandpa gathered the papers back into the folder. Sometimes the hardest part of revenge isn't getting it. It's living with the consequences. I wrapped my hands around the warm teacup, feeling the weight of the choice before me. I can live with the consequences. The question is, can they? Sunday arrived like a storm front, dark and inevitable. I sat in my grandparents' kitchen, watching Grandma Martha put the finishing touches on her lasagna, while my phone buzzed with increasingly frantic texts from Emily. Where are you? Everyone's waiting. The presentation starts in 30 minutes. Mom's asking about the lasagna. I switched my phone to silent and pulled the manila envelope from my bag, spreading its contents across the counter. Employee complaints, bounced checks, eviction notices, Emily's house of cards documented in stark black and white. You don't have to do this today, Grandma said, wiping her hands on her apron. Actually, I do. I gathered the papers back into the envelope. Emily's meeting with potential investors tomorrow. Once she gets Mom and Dad's money, she'll burn through that too. The doorbell rang. Through the window, I saw Emily's Mercedes in the driveway. My stomach clenched. I'll get it, Grandpa Henry said, but Emily was already letting herself in. Lauren, what are you doing? Everyone's waiting at the house. She stopped short when she saw the envelope in my hands. "What's that?" "Funny story," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I was going to ask you the same thing about those unpaid wages and lawsuits." The color drained from Emily's face. "Where did you—" Public records are fascinating reading. I pulled out the eviction notice, especially when you know where to look. Emily closed the door behind her, her charm falling away like a discarded mask. "You don't understand. The company's going through a temporary cash flow issue. Once we get the new investment—" "You mean Mom and Dad's retirement savings? I can fix this." She stepped forward, reaching for the envelope. "I just need time." I moved the documents out of her reach. "Like you needed time the last 3 rounds of funding? How many investors have you burned through already?" "You're going to destroy this family." Her voice cracked. "Is that what you want? That's rich, coming from you." The laugh that escaped me didn't sound like my own. "You're taking their future, Emily. Everything they saved, my college fund. I'll pay it back, once the company—" "There is no company." I slapped the eviction notice down on the counter. "It's over. The only question is how many people you're going to drag down with you." Emily's face hardened. "So what's your play here? Expose me at the family dinner? Humiliate me in front of everyone?" She leaned in close. "You really think they'll choose you over me?" The words hit their mark, but I didn't flinch. "This isn't about choosing sides anymore. This is about stopping you before you destroy everything." "Lauren!" Grandpa Henry's voice cut through the tension. "Your sister's right about one thing. This will change the family forever." The family changed the moment they decided I was disposable. I picked up the envelope and Grandma's lasagna. "I'm just making sure everyone knows exactly what they're sacrificing for." Emily grabbed my arm. "Wait, please. We can work something out." For a moment, I saw past her perfect facade to the desperate woman beneath. The sister who used to read me bedtime stories, who taught me to ride a bike, who somewhere along the way had lost herself in the need to be perfect. "You're right," I said softly. "We could work something out. You could tell them the truth yourself." Hope flickered in her eyes. "And then what?" "Then you face the consequences, like an adult. No more schemes, no more lies." She released my arm, stepping back. "I can't." "Then I will." I walked past her to the door. "Are you coming?" Emily smoothed her blazer, her mask sliding back into place. "You're making a mistake." "No," I said, thinking of all the years I'd spent in her shadow, all the dreams I'd been told to sacrifice. "I'm finally fixing one." As we drove separately to our parents' house, I thought about Grandma's words from earlier. Sometimes the hardest part isn't getting revenge, it's living with the consequences. But as I clutched the envelope containing Emily's secrets, I realized something else. Sometimes the consequences of staying silent are harder to live with than the price of speaking up. The family dinner turned into a wake for my conscience. Mom had arranged Emily's presentation materials at the head of the table, like some corporate altar. Dad poured wine. Grandpa Henry and Grandma Martha sat quietly, their presence both comforting and condemning. The manila envelope burned in my lap like a loaded gun. "Before we start," Emily said, standing with practiced poise, "I want to thank everyone for their support, especially Mom and Dad, who've always believed in me." I watched her hands shake slightly as she opened her laptop. The perfect Emily, coming undone at the seams. "Lauren," Mom called from the kitchen, "help me with the plates?" In the kitchen, Mom busied herself with serving dishes. "I know you're upset about the college fund." I gripped the counter. "Do you?" "We're doing what's best for the family." She touched my shoulder. "Emily's success will benefit everyone." The irony tasted like acid. "Did you even look at her business plan?" "Your sister knows what she's doing." Mom's voice carried that familiar note of dismissal. "Now please don't make this dinner difficult." I returned to the dining room where Emily was mid-presentation. "Projected growth rates suggest we'll break even by Q3. "Interesting," Grandpa Henry interrupted, his lawyer's voice cutting through Emily's pitch. "Those numbers seem optimistic considering your current situation." Emily's smile flickered. "I'm not sure what you mean." "The lawsuits, for instance." He sipped his wine. 3, if I'm not mistaken." The room went still. Dad lowered his glasses. Lawsuits? Minor contract disputes, Emily said quickly. Everything's under control. Like the eviction notice? The words left my mouth before I could stop them. Mom's fork clattered against her plate. What eviction notice? Emily's face hardened. Lauren, don't. Or the unpaid employees? My hands shook as I pulled out the documents. Should we talk about them too? That's enough! Emily slammed her hand on the table. You have no right. No right? I stood, scattering papers across the table. You're stealing my future, and I have no right? Lauren, Dad started, but I was beyond stopping. Look at the documents. All of it. The lawsuits, the bounced checks, the empty office space. Your perfect daughter is running a shell game, and you're her next marks. Mom reached for the nearest paper with trembling hands. Emily, what is this? It's not what it looks like. Emily's voice cracked. I can explain everything. Please do, Grandpa Henry said softly, starting with where the previous investments went. The room spun with accusations and denials, Mom crying, Dad reading documents with growing horror, Emily's desperate attempts to explain. But something felt wrong. The victory I'd imagined tasted hollow. Then Emily said something that stopped everything. You think you've won? She laughed, a broken sound. Go ahead, destroy my reputation, but I'm not the only one with secrets. She turned to our grandparents. Tell her about the trust fund, Grandpa. The one you've been hiding from everyone. My world tilted. What? Grandpa Henry's face went pale. Emily? Your college fund was never in danger, Lauren. Grandpa set up a trust for you years ago. He just didn't want Mom and Dad to know because he thought they'd try to access it for me. She smiled bitterly. Isn't family wonderful? I turned to my grandfather, the one person I thought I could trust completely. Is it true? His silence was answer enough. I was protecting you, he finally said. By lying to me? Letting me think I was about to lose everything? The betrayal cut deeper than anything Emily had done. You watched me tear apart the family over something that wasn't even real. The trust doesn't change what Emily did, Grandma Martha interjected, or what your parents were willing to do. No, I said, gathering the scattered documents. It just means everyone in this family is really good at lying. I walked out of the dining room, past Emily's triumphant smirk, past Mom's tears, past Dad's confusion. The revenge I'd thought would taste sweet had turned to ashes, poisoned by the revelation that I was just another player in the family game of secrets and lies. The front door closed behind me with a finality that felt like goodbye. 3 days after the disastrous dinner, Emily showed up at my bedroom window at midnight. Her mascara was smeared, her designer outfit wrinkled. She looked nothing like the polished entrepreneur who dominated our family dinners. We need to talk, she said, climbing through the window like we used to do as kids. Mom and Dad are meeting with their financial advisor tomorrow. I kept highlighting my textbook. Sounds like a you problem. They're going to lose everything, Lauren. Her voice cracked. The house, their retirement, everything. Should have thought about that before you lied to them. Emily sat on my bed uninvited. I didn't lie about everything. The company has potential. I just need more time. Time to dig a deeper hole? I finally looked up. Or time to drag more people down with you? You don't understand. I couldn't fail. Not after everything they sacrificed for me. She pulled out her phone, showing me an email. But I have a solution. An investor in Singapore. If you just tell Mom and Dad you were wrong, that the documents were fake. I knocked the phone from her hand. Are you serious? Think about it. You get your college fund back, I get time to turn things around, and Mom and Dad keep their savings. She leaned forward, desperate. Everyone wins. Except your employees, the other investors you've screwed over. Since when do you care about them? Emily's voice hardened. This is about revenge, isn't it? Finally getting back at Big Sister for stealing all the attention. The truth in her words stung more than I wanted to admit. Get out. You know what's funny? She stood, smoothing her skirt. You're more like me than you think. We both lie to get what we want. The only difference is, I admit it. A knock at my door made us both freeze. Lauren? Dad's voice. Who are you talking to? Emily moved toward the window, but I grabbed her arm. No more running. I opened the door. Dad stood there in his robe, looking older than I'd ever seen him. His eyes widened at Emily's presence. What's going on? Family meeting, I said. Now. In the kitchen, Mom sat with papers spread across the table. Bank statements, investment documents, loan applications. Her hands trembled as she poured coffee. The Singapore investor, Emily started. Doesn't exist, I finished. Show them the email, Emily. Show them how it bounced back as undeliverable. Mom's coffee cup clattered against its saucer. Is this true? Emily's facade cracked. I can fix this. I just need... More time? Dad's voice was quiet but firm. More money? More lies? I did it for you, Emily shouted. To make you proud. To be the successful daughter you always wanted. We never wanted, Mom began, but I cut her off. Yes, you did. You always pushed her to be perfect, to achieve more. And when she couldn't live up to it, she started lying. And you believed her because it was easier than admitting you were wrong. The silence that followed felt like glass about to shatter. Lauren, Dad said softly, about your college fund? Save it. I know about Grandpa's trust fund. I stood up. But this isn't about money anymore. It's about truth. All of it. Emily laughed bitterly. Truth? In this family? Starting now. I pulled out my Princeton acceptance letter. I got in. Early decision. Full ride. Mom gasped. When? 2 months ago. I didn't tell you because I wanted to see if you'd even ask about my plans. But you were too busy with Emily's startup to notice. The weight of unspoken words hung between us. Years of favoritism, lies, and damaged trust condensed into this single moment. So what happens now? Dad asked. I looked at Emily, saw the scared little girl behind the ambitious facade, saw myself in her desperation for approval. The revenge I'd wanted suddenly felt hollow. Now, I said, we either start being honest with each other or we stop pretending to be a family at all. The choice hung in the air like smoke, waiting to either clear or suffocate us all. The lawyer's office felt like a mausoleum. Mom and Dad sat across from Emily and me, the mahogany table between us like a battle line. 2 hours of discussing bankruptcy protection, asset liquidation, and criminal liability had stripped away whatever facade of family we had left. The house will need to be sold, the lawyer said, shuffling papers, and there may be criminal charges regarding the misappropriation of investor funds. Emily stared at her manicured nails, now chipped and uneven. I can fix this. Stop saying that! Mom slammed her hand on the table. You can't fix this, none of us can. The lawyer cleared his throat. There's also the matter of the trust fund. Leave it alone, I said, standing up. That money's for Princeton. Lauren, Dad's voice cracked. We might need it to keep Emily out of jail. The world tilted sideways. You're joking. It's just a loan, Mom said quickly. Once we sell the house? Once you sell the house, you'll have nothing. I looked at Emily. Tell them about the other debts. Emily's silence said everything. What other debts? Dad asked. I pulled out my phone, showing them the email I'd received that morning. 3 more lawsuits filed yesterday, former employees claiming Emily used their personal information to secure additional loans. Mom started crying. Dad aged 10 years in 10 seconds. I was going to pay them back, Emily whispered. The company just needed... More time? I laughed, the sound sharp enough to cut. You committed fraud, Emily, identity theft, and now they want to take my future to save you, again. We're family, Mom pleaded. We have to stick together. Family? I turned to her. Where was this family when I needed you? When I got into Princeton? When I won the state debate championship? When I... That's different, Mom interrupted. Emily needs us. And I didn't? The lawyer cleared his throat again. Perhaps we should take a break. No. I pulled out my Princeton acceptance letter, now worn from being carried around like a talisman. I'm done taking breaks. Done waiting for you to notice me. Done sacrificing everything for Emily. Lauren, please. Emily reached for my hand. I know I messed up, but I jerked away. You didn't mess up. You lied. You stole. You destroyed our parents' future, and now you want to destroy mine too. We can figure something out, Dad said weakly. Maybe defer Princeton for a year? Stop. My voice shook. Just stop. Emily's been manipulating you for years, and you let her because it was easier than admitting you failed. Failed her, failed me, failed as parents. The words hung in the air like smoke. Miss Lauren, the lawyer said gently, the trust fund is legally yours, but accessing it now could help minimize the family's criminal exposure. The family's exposure? I stood up, gathering my things. There is no family. Not anymore. Where are you going? Mom's voice was small. To pack. I'm moving in with Grandma and Grandpa until Princeton starts. I turned at the door. And the trust fund stays where it is. Emily made her choices. Now she can face the consequences. Lauren, wait! Emily called after me. I stopped but didn't turn around. You know what's funny? I wanted revenge so badly, wanted to make you all feel as small and insignificant as you made me feel. But now, I looked back at them one last time. Now I just feel sorry for you. The elevator doors closed on their protests, their pleas, their tears. As I walked through the lobby, my phone buzzed with a text from Grandpa Henry. Did you tell them? I typed back, yes, it's done. His response came quickly. Come home. Martha's making your favorite lasagna. Home. Not the house where I grew up, not the family that had betrayed me, but a new home, with people who saw me for who I was. The revenge I'd wanted had come at a terrible price. But as I drove away from the lawyer's office, leaving behind the wreckage of my first family, I realized something. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying others. It's about saving yourself. The for sale sign in front of my childhood home looked like a surrender flag. I sat in my car watching Emily load boxes into her Mercedes. 2 weeks had passed since the lawyer's office, and the world had shifted on its axis. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. Please come inside, we need to talk. I almost drove away, but Grandpa Henry's words from breakfast echoed in my mind. Sometimes closure matters more than victory. Emily spotted me first. Lauren, what are you doing here? Getting the rest of my things. I walked past her, key in hand. The house smelled different, like cardboard and desperation. Mom and Dad sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by moving boxes. An envelope with my name sat between them. We sold the house, Dad said unnecessarily. Got an offer yesterday. Congratulations. I reached for a box labeled Lauren Books. Wait. Mom pushed the envelope forward. This is for you. Inside was a check, a large one. What is this? The house sold for more than we expected, Dad explained. Enough to cover most of Emily's legal fees and, well, we wanted you to have your share. My share? I laughed. Now you want to be fair? Lauren? Emily appeared in the doorway. Don't. I turned back to our parents. Keep your money. I don't want it. Please, Mom's voice cracked. We're trying to make things right. Right? The word tasted bitter. Emily commits fraud, destroys your retirement, and nearly ruins my future. But you still tried to take my trust fund to save her. That's not something you can fix with a check. I'm going to jail, Emily said quietly. The room went still. What? 6 months. She wouldn't meet my eyes. Part of a plea deal. The judge. He made an example of me. Something tight in my chest uncoiled. Not satisfaction exactly. Something more complicated. Good. Lauren! Mom gasped. No, she's right. Emily stepped forward. I deserved it. All of it. But before I go, I need you to know something. She pulled out her phone, showing me an email. I got this yesterday, from Princeton. I snatched the phone. The email was from the Dean of Admissions, responding to Emily's confession about trying to sabotage my acceptance by claiming I'd cheated on my SATs. You did what? I was desperate, Emily whispered. But they didn't believe me. They checked everything and they said your application was one of the strongest they'd ever seen, that you earned your place. The room spun. All this time, while I'd been fighting for recognition, Emily had been actively trying to destroy my future. Get out. My voice shook. All of you, get out of my way. Lauren, please. Mom reached for me. We can still be a family. No. I stepped back. A family doesn't do this. A family doesn't try to destroy each other. A family... I looked at each of them in turn. A family sees you, supports you, loves you without conditions, like Grandma and Grandpa did for me. We do love you, Dad protested. Maybe, but you loved the idea of Emily's success more. I picked up my box of books. I'm going to Princeton. I'm going to build a life without your toxic expectations and Emily's manipulation. And if you ever try to contact me again... You'll what? Emily challenged, a flash of her old self showing through. Expose us? Ruin us? We're already ruined. I looked at her, really looked at her, and felt something close to pity. No. I'll succeed. I'll thrive. I'll be happy. And that will be revenge enough. The silence that followed felt like freedom. I walked out of that house for the last time, leaving behind the check, the tears, and the broken remains of what we'd once called family. My phone buzzed again. Grandma Martha this time. Dinner's ready when you are, sweetheart. I smiled, starting my car. Emily would go to jail. My parents would rebuild their lives without their safety net. And I would go to Princeton, carrying with me not the weight of revenge, but the lightness of liberation. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying your enemies. It's about becoming exactly who you were meant to be, despite them. Princeton's iron gates loomed before me as Grandpa Henry's car idled in the drop-off zone. Move-in day had arrived with the weight of endings and beginnings. Last box, Grandma Martha said, handing me a small package wrapped in brown paper. Don't open it until we're gone. A commotion near the entrance caught my attention. Through the crowd of freshmen and parents, I spotted a familiar figure, Mom standing awkwardly with a gift bag. Did you invite her? I asked Grandpa Henry. He shook his head. She called yesterday, asked where you'd be. I told her it wasn't my decision to make. Mom saw us and started walking over. She looked different, older, more uncertain, wearing clothes that spoke of discount stores rather than designer boutiques. Lauren, she stopped a few feet away. I know you said not to contact you, but why are you here? She held out the gift bag. Emily asked me to give you this before she went in. I didn't take it. How is she? Scared. Humble, finally. Mom's hands twisted together. The house sold. We found a small apartment. Your father's working again at the hardware store. The gift bag swayed between us like a pendulum. What's in it? I don't know. She sealed it. Mom's voice cracked. Lauren, I know we can't fix what we broke, but maybe we can build something new, something honest. Grandma Martha touched my shoulder. We'll give you a minute. As they walked away, I finally took the bag. Inside was a single envelope containing a letter and a key. Dear Lauren, the key is to my safety deposit box. Everything's yours. The patents, the legitimate research, the client lists. Maybe you can make something of them. Something real. I thought success meant being better than everyone else. Better than you. I was wrong. Success is being true to yourself, something you understood long before I did. I'm sorry for trying to sabotage your future. Sorry for being the sister who tore you down instead of building you up. Sorry for making our parents choose between us. Don't forgive me. Don't forget. Just succeed. Be brilliant. Be free. Emily P.S. The guards let us watch TV sometimes. When you win your first debate championship at Princeton, I'll be watching. The key felt heavy in my palm. She's trying, Mom said softly. It's not enough. I know. She stepped back. But when you're ready, if you're ever ready, we'll be here. Different, but here. I tucked the letter and key into my pocket. I have to go. My roommate's waiting. Of course. Mom turned to leave, then stopped. Lauren, I'm proud of you. Not for your achievements or Princeton or any of that. For your strength. for knowing your worth when we forgot it. The words I'd always wanted to hear, arriving too late to matter. Or maybe arriving exactly when they should. I watched her walk away, then opened Grandma's package. Inside was a small garden trowel, the one I'd used that day in their garden when everything started unraveling. A note fell out. For planting new roots, love, Grandma, and Grandpa. My phone buzzed with a text from my roommate. Where are you? Room's half empty without you. I looked back at Mom's retreating figure, then at the trowel in my hand. The urge to call her back, to try fixing what was broken, rose up like a tide. But some things, once broken, shouldn't be fixed. They should be rebuilt, differently, better. I walked through Princeton's gates alone, carrying Emily's key, Grandma's trowel, and the weight of choices made and unmade. The revenge I'd sought had transformed into something else. Not forgiveness, exactly, but understanding. Understanding that sometimes the greatest victory isn't in destroying what hurt you, but in growing beyond the need for destruction. My roommate waved from our window. Ahead lay 4 years of possibilities, unmarked by my family's expectations or Emily's shadow. I stepped forward, leaving the gift bag behind, but taking with me the key to something new. Not redemption. I wasn't ready for that. But possibility. Sometimes that's enough.
I'm going to remarry my 18-year-old girlfriend. You're in the way, so disappear. What? So, you want a divorce, is that it? Exactly. What is that? Don't joke about things like that. You guys have always treated me carelessly, haven't you? It's too late to get flustered after I've brought up divorce. What? I'm not flustered at all. I'm actually mad that you brought up divorce to Mom first. Don't raise your voice so much. How can you stay so calm? I'm angry too. Got it. Shall we get divorced then? Oh, you'll grant me a divorce? That makes things easier. What? Mom? Is that okay? After years of juggling child-rearing, shuttling kids to extracurricular activities, and caring for my father-in-law, my husband suddenly proposed a divorce. When I casually agreed to the divorce and mentioned it too lightly, my eldest daughter shouted in surprise. Ethan was alone, celebrating with a fist pump. My eldest daughter seemed not to understand my words, but this is fine. If everything goes as I expect, everything should resolve smoothly. In reality, a month after I blocked his calls, my ex-husband came to our house. I am a 37-year-old part-time worker. I married Ethan, who is 2 years older than me, when I was 24 due to a shotgun wedding, and we were blessed with 2 children after the marriage. Our daughter Kristen, who turns 13 this year, has started middle school, and our son Ted has turned 6 and started elementary school. With the children reaching middle and elementary school ages, childcare should have become a bit easier, but the birth of our second son, Sean, 2 years ago has kept us in a constant state of busyness. However, I have strong support, so I can manage household chores, childcare, and work. Ted. You need your gym bag today, right? Prepare it yourself. I'll prepare it after breakfast. That's what you said last week, but you forgot it, didn't you? Prepare it first. Seeing me always busy, my eldest daughter naturally started to support me. She is already showing the temperament of a tough mother, even more maternal than I am. I rely on my eldest daughter's help with childcare, which honestly helps a lot. However, I also feel pathetic having to rely on a child for help with childcare. Still, I depend on my eldest daughter because I am also caring for George, my father-in-law. Megan, I'm sorry, but I need to go to the toilet. Can you take me? Understood. Let's get up slowly then. I'm always sorry about this. My father-in-law always looks apologetic towards me. However, I have never considered him a burden. Though he requires care, he is only weak in the legs and can manage daily activities with some support. Thus, it's more about support than care, really. George is 70, and my mother-in-law Dorothy is 68. Since my mother-in-law alone can't fully support him, our family has been living with my in-laws for about 3 years now. Living with my in-laws is often fraught with trouble, but fortunately, it hasn't involved me much. Welcome home, thanks for the hard work, Bert. Lunch is ready, you'll eat, right? Thank you. I appreciate it, as always. We're the ones being helped here, don't worry about it. Oh, by the way, I fixed a button on Ted's uniform that had come off. I did it without asking, I hope that was okay? You fixed it? That's very helpful, thank you. My mother-in-law supports us with housework and childcare. Also, my father-in-law entertains my eldest son when he returns from school. When I was pregnant with my second son, they helped me a lot. Though we came to my in-laws to support them, it feels like the roles have completely reversed. Therefore, I feel indebted to my in-laws, but they always say not to worry about it. I'm always causing trouble, I know. Living with your husband's parents must be tough, but you accepted us. I'm truly grateful. That's right. I couldn't support him alone. Besides, we're happy to live with our grandchildren. You might think we're helping you with housework and childcare, but that's not it. We do it because we enjoy it, and it brings us joy. After 3 years of living with my in-laws, I've been leading a busy yet enjoyable life. However, there is one thing I'm concerned about. In these 3 years, my husband's attitude has gradually changed. One morning, it was a usual scene. You didn't hand over the notice from yesterday, did you? I always tell you to make sure to hand it over. I just forgot yesterday. Megan. I'm sorry, but could you buy some sewing thread at the dollar store on your way back from work today? Understood. Could you also buy a new nail clipper? The one we're using now is getting dull. This ordinary scene seems to annoy my husband. You have it good, getting help with the housework and childcare. How can you say that? You don't help, so you wouldn't know, but household chores and childcare are tough. Plus, I even have to go to work. Work. It's just an easy part-time job, isn't it? What's the matter with you? Did something bad happen at work? What? Dad, are you taking it out on us? It's not like that. Some people handle housework, childcare, and work all by themselves, so I just mean don't be too spoiled. After placing his toast back on the plate, my husband left for work. I get complaints from my husband. He seems displeased that I receive help from my eldest daughter and my in-laws. However, since my eldest daughter and in-laws are on my side, my husband often retreats in a bad mood. Feeling uncomfortable without allies, he has started to reduce his time at home. Welcome home. You're late again today. What about dinner? I don't need it. I'm just going to take a shower and go to sleep. My husband comes home late and has started to go out alone on weekends. He sulks because he doesn't have the family's support, although it's his own attitude that causes this, making it feel like a fourth child has emerged. But my husband is almost 40, an adult, and a father. I can't deal with him sulking like a child forever. Hey, even if you don't help with the housework, could you at least help a little with the childcare? Ask your mom and them for that. Kristen has started going to cram school, right? I have to pick her up because she gets home late. And Ted has joined a soccer club, hasn't he? Sometimes on weekends, I have to take him a bit far for practice games. I can't really ask your mother to do the driving, can I? I'm not doing any driving around. Why should I have to drive the kids around at night or on weekends when I'm tired from work? You have a part-time job and you can drive, so you should do it. If I take the kids to and from their activities, I won't be able to do anything at home. I'll have to rely even more on your parents. I understand you're tired from work, but please, help a little. You said you'd help when the kids started their activities, didn't you? I said I'd pay for it. If you can't drive them, then make them quit their activities. My husband's dissatisfaction is directed not only at me, but also at the children who don't take his side. It seems the biggest child of all requires the most attention. Since I can't make the children quit their activities, I decided to handle their transportation myself. But I can't rely on my in-laws any more than I already do. So, I try to keep from adding to their burden as much as possible. However, the driving, taking 1 to 2 hours each time, inevitably cuts into the efficiency of my housework and childcare. To make up for the lost efficiency, I've started waking up early and cutting back on sleep to get housework and childcare done. I use every spare moment for housework and childcare. Exhausted from non-stop housework and childcare, I also go to my part-time job and continue to support my father-in-law. This unsustainable effort can't continue forever. Having reached my limit just on grit, I consulted my husband again, but he flatly refused, saying, "What? I told you I wouldn't do the driving." So, I continue to transport the children, hiding my fatigue. I'm home. Welcome back. Well done, Megan. Are you okay? Isn't the driving tough? I'm fine. I'll get dinner ready. I force a smile to hide my fatigue. I can't rely on my in-laws any more than I already do. I know I should openly rely on my in-laws, but I just can't bring myself to do it. Unfortunately, bad things seem to happen one after another. My father-in-law suddenly passed away from acute myocardial infarction. At the hospital, my daughter, my mother-in-law, and I cried as we looked at my father-in-law, who had passed away in his sleep. My son was teary-eyed and looked down in silence. It's understandable that 2-year-old Sean doesn't grasp the situation and looks confused. However, why is my husband grinning? Well, Dad was over 70, so it can't be helped, right? No more needing to help with the toilet or the bath. Let's try to think positively. My husband is not the kind of person who makes jokes to cheer us up. He probably means what he said. Even if it were a joke, it would be in extremely poor taste. But right now, sadness overwhelmingly outweighs anger. So, we ignored my husband and mourned the loss of my father-in-law. We better get started on the funeral arrangements. Our reaction probably wasn't what he had hoped for. He left the hospital room with a dismissive remark, increasing the emotional distance between us and him. I'll be late again today, so I don't need dinner. 2 years after my father-in-law's death, my husband continues to do as he pleases, still not helping with housework or childcare, and I'm still doing the driving for our 2 children and now also for Sean to kindergarten. Moreover, he comes home later than before, sometimes doesn't return on weekends, and has become even more reckless with money. Hey! Did you use the household money again? So what? Most of that money is what I earned, isn't it? We have 3 kids, you know? We still need a lot of money, so stop wasting it. Shut up. You should just keep quiet and take care of the house. Our relationship had already cooled off. But we haven't divorced yet, partly because of the children, but also because I'm worried about my mother-in-law. I'm sorry that Ethan keeps causing trouble. You can dump him anytime, you know? My mother-in-law sometimes tells me it's okay to divorce, but if we were to divorce, my husband and mother-in-law would be left alone. I'm worried about leaving my kindly mother-in-law alone with such a husband. So, whenever she brings up divorce, I just laugh it off. What are you saying? Even if my relationship with my husband has cooled, having 3 adorable children and a kind mother-in-law is enough for me. However, the time to end such a life has come. My mother-in-law has suffered a stroke. Though her life was saved, my mother-in-law developed cognitive impairment as a result of her condition. The view from that mountain is really beautiful. I really love that view. I went there last week. Wow, really? I'd like to see that view from the mountain someday too. My eldest daughter listens to her grandmother with a smile. However, my mother-in-law did not go to the mountain last week. Due to her cognitive impairment from the stroke, she also has memory issues and talks about trips from years ago as if they happened recently. Moreover, she repeats the same story multiple times. My eldest daughter continues to listen with a smile until my mother-in-law is satisfied. Did Mom finish her meal? It took a long time today. Yeah. But she wasn't slow eating, she was just caught up in her stories. I see. That's a sign she's still energetic. We need to keep her healthy. Right. But I'm a bit worried. Earlier, she reached out her hand to a completely different place from her spoon. To keep her healthy, we need to cover for her like that. I was worried whether I could provide enough support when my mother-in-law fell, but my eldest daughter helps with the caregiving and the household chores, so we're managing. Seeing how my daughter supports me, my eldest son has also started to take care of his younger brother. I've come to realize that this is what it means to support each other as a family. It's just unfortunate that my husband's cooperation isn't part of this. Why doesn't that guy help with anything around the house? Even Ted is looking after Sean. Don't call your father that guy. Father? Can someone like him even be called a father? It's no wonder my eldest daughter is exasperated with her husband. Well, I think it's much better than being bothered by him. My husband still comes home late and goes out on weekends. It's a problem that he spends money, but I'm not interested in what he does outside. So, it's better for me if he just stays uninvolved. Thinking this, I had been ignoring my husband, but about 6 months after my mother-in-law's fall, my husband dropped a huge bombshell on our family. I'm going to remarry my 18-year-old girlfriend. You're in the way, so disappear. What? My husband, returning home after the kids had gone to bed, suddenly confronted me with a divorce. I was speechless, my mind went blank. Though I've been managing household chores, childcare, and work with some help since coming to live with my in-laws. I also took care of my father-in-law, and now I'm caring for my mother-in-law. Do I really have to be confronted with a divorce from a husband who hasn't helped with the house or his parents at all? And to remarry an 18-year-old? No matter how hard I try, I can't understand what my husband is saying. So, you want a divorce, is that it? Exactly. What is that? Don't joke about things like that. I thought she was asleep, but my eldest daughter had been awake. She couldn't stand our conversation and burst in. You guys have always treated me carelessly, haven't you? It's too late to get flustered after I've brought up divorce. What? I'm not flustered at all. I'm actually mad that you brought up divorce to Mom first. My eldest daughter's anger was so strong, I couldn't even talk to my husband. It's nice that she's angry for me, but this could wake up my sons. Kristen, don't raise your voice so much. How can you stay so calm? I'm angry too. First, let your father and I talk, so go back to your room. No. I'm staying here. It seemed my eldest daughter had no intention of leaving the room. She quieted down but crossed her arms and continued to glare at her father without moving. It's not ideal to discuss divorce in front of the kids, but it can't be helped. So, you've been coming home late and going out on weekends for that girlfriend, huh? Yes. We've been together for about a year now. She's a girl who works part-time at my regular pub. Unlike you, she's friendly and kind. That should be called an affair, not a relationship, but that's not the point I want to emphasize. She's still 18, right? Are her parents okay with this? Her parents are strongly opposed. If she marries me, they're going to disown her. How can you marry without her parents' consent? We don't need her parents' consent. We can get married. That's why we've been patiently dating this past year. It's not about the law, but about human connections and decency. I was at a loss, unable to understand my husband. Looking at my daughter's face, she had an expression of complete disbelief. So, her parents don't agree, but you've confirmed her feelings, right? Yes, of course. We love each other. I didn't need to hear that. I don't want her to say too much in front of my daughter. At this point, I don't care about the divorce or the affair. What worries me is my mother-in-law after the divorce. I looked at a photo of my mother-in-law on a shelf in the corner of the room. It was taken when she was healthy, smiling on a mountain hike. Looking at my mother-in-law's smiling face, I remembered she had always said I could leave my husband anytime. Understood. So, shall we get divorced? Oh, you'll grant me a divorce? That makes things easier. What? Mom? Is that okay? My casual agreement to the divorce and my light mention of it shocked my eldest daughter. Ethan was alone, celebrating with a fist pump. I can't accept this. This is fine. What's fine? This is fine. I repeated the same words, trying to communicate with my eyes to my eldest daughter that I wasn't just accepting the divorce. It seemed my feelings had reached her, who had been with me as family. However, my husband, who hadn't been part of us as a family, failed to notice the silent conversation between my daughter and me. If everything goes as I expect, everything should work out smoothly. The decision to divorce is made, but there are children involved, and we need to discuss the details. Therefore, I cannot leave the house immediately. Of course, it's okay for me to take the children, right? Obviously. Better take them away. They're just a nuisance. Understood. But it's impossible to just take the children and leave immediately, so wait a bit. Then, you can stay here until you find a place to move. I'll be spending time with my girlfriend. But get out in 2 weeks. I can't have you sticking around forever. As my husband left the house happily, my eldest daughter looked at me anxiously. It's okay. Do you think a person like that can be happy? Surely, your grandfather in heaven will punish him. I tried to alleviate my daughter's anxiety with a smile. Seeing me smile, she too smiled back, reassured. The next day, I reported the divorce to my mother-in-law. Mother, I'm sorry. I've decided to get a divorce. It's okay. I'm sorry for all the trouble up to now. Though the conversation went on, my mother-in-law probably didn't fully grasp its meaning. Yet, her words were comforting to me. 2 weeks later, I left the house with my 3 children. The place we moved to wasn't far from my in-laws. This was to avoid changing the children's schools and to continue my part-time job, but there was another reason as well. The divorce proceeded smoothly as I didn't press the issue of the affair. I thought it more important to quickly sever ties with my husband and ensure a smooth transition to receiving child support, rather than arguing about compensation. However, in return for not fussing about the affair, I took most of our savings and the car. My ex-husband, eager to start his life with his 18-year-old new wife, accepted these terms without fully understanding how much it would cost him later. Mom, you think about 2 months? I think about 1 month. You think he lacks that much persistence? Surely he can last about 2 months, right? I explained to my daughter why I divorced her father so easily. Satisfied with my explanation, she looked forward to that time. A month after the divorce, my ex-husband called my smartphone. See, just about a month. Not yet. I don't think he's been pushed to his limit yet. Let's wait and see. After that, my ex-husband started bombarding me with calls. At night, he would call every 10 minutes. It became impossible to relax at home, so I blocked his number. Since I had told him where we lived, there wouldn't be a problem if he couldn't reach me by phone. When he was driven to his limit, he would surely come to the house. A month after blocking him, my ex-husband finally showed up at our house. Please. Come back. I was wrong. Through the intercom, my husband pleaded loudly for help. It was night, and to avoid bad rumors in the neighborhood, I reluctantly let him into the house to talk. I sent the younger son to another room with the eldest, and I listened to my ex-husband's story with my daughter. Well, it was probably just as I had expected. I have an idea of what happened, but could you explain it anyway? After you guys left, I started living with my remarriage partner and my mom, just the 3 of us at her home. But the new wife couldn't handle taking care of mom and gave up, right? Yes. I didn't think she'd give up so easily, even middle schooler Kristen could do it. You know. It's obvious, isn't it? Taking care of parents isn't about persistence. Kristen could take care of mom because we've always lived as a family. I could take care of your parents because they were kind to me and felt like my real parents. Did you really think that just getting married and saying, "This is your mother-in-law, take care of her," would work? That is, you probably pushed all the housework onto her too, right? Anyone would hate that. Especially an 18-year-old. So, did you divorce her already? No, we hadn't registered the marriage yet, we were planning to on our anniversary. Lucky for her, then. She dumped you easily, huh? I've been there, and I know that young women can find older men attractive. I bet the 18-year-old new wife was serious about marrying my ex-husband. Otherwise, she wouldn't have fought her parents' opposition and moved in with my in-laws. She must have been informed about my mother-in-law beforehand. However, the reality of married life and caregiving must have been much harder than she imagined. For an 18-year-old with little life experience, it would be tough to overcome such trials. If they were to make their married life successful, my ex-husband's support would have been crucial, but he helped with nothing. Moreover, it's dubious whether he even explained the situation adequately or prepared her appropriately. But she cut ties with her parents to marry you, right? How are you planning to take responsibility? Her parents said they'd cut ties, but they didn't in the end. Now she's being sheltered by them. Sheltered? What do you mean? Did you? Of course, I went after her when she left the house. But her parents said, "Our daughter is scared, so don't come anymore." This is a marital issue. It's natural for us to discuss it together. Yet, they say if I persist, they'll consult a lawyer. A 40-year-old man pressuring an 18-year-old girl is scary enough. If a daughter runs back home from a man, it's natural for parents to protect her. Moreover, the mention of a lawyer instead of the police shows how serious her parents are. The police cannot act without evidence of harm, but involving a lawyer might make it easier for them to intervene, and even if the police do not act, a civil lawsuit might be possible. Moreover, although people may speak of cutting ties, family bonds are not so easily severed. I cannot imagine ever cutting ties with my children, no matter what they do. However, my ex-husband seems to be someone who can imagine cutting ties with his children. I don't care about you and your new wife anymore. But you came here alone, is Grandma okay? Mom's already asleep, so she's fine. I've also installed a monitoring camera. Grandma is alone at home? I can't believe it. Give me the keys now. My eldest daughter snatched the keys from my ex-husband and rushed to our mother-in-law's place without stopping. What are you thinking? I'm at my limit. Whatever I do, you ask about Megan? About Kristen? About Ted and Sean? Suddenly she starts saying things that make no sense. My wife ran away, and I can't take care of Mom alone anymore. Please, come back. The reason Mom doesn't rely on you and calls our names instead, is it because you couldn't be the family she needed? Being related by blood doesn't make you family. If you were really family, you'd understand what Mom wants to say. Kristen and I have never thought Mom was saying nonsense. Realizing how foolish his actions had been, my ex-husband hung his head and fell silent. If my ex-husband has come to regret his past actions, that's an ideal turn of events for me. I handed him a brochure I had prepared. I have no intention of remarrying you. But you can't take care of Mom, can you? How about we get her into a care facility? I suggested to my ex-husband that we place our mother-in-law in a nearby care facility. It would be much safer for her to be there than with my incapable ex-husband. Additionally, visiting her at the facility would allow us to see her without having to meet my ex-husband. The brochure I handed to my ex-husband was for a facility near our house. We hadn't moved too far away after leaving the marital home, partly for this reason. Okay. I'll do that. With this, I achieved my goal. I managed to divorce and ensure that my children and I could see my mother-in-law whenever we wanted. Shall we head to your house then? What does that mean? My ex-husband, mistakenly thinking that his remorse and regret had moved me, hoped for a positive response. Don't misunderstand. I'm going to pick up Kristen. She rushed out suddenly earlier, and since it's night, even if it's close by, it's natural for me to go pick up our child, right? Realizing he had been mistaken, my ex-husband's shoulders fell. I'm sorry for the misunderstanding. It had been 2 months since we last visited the family home, but I didn't meet with my mother-in-law. I simply picked up my eldest daughter and returned home. We can meet with my mother-in-law anytime now, so hearing from my daughter was enough for now. Grandma said she went to the mountain yesterday too. She's still so lively, huh? It's not fair that only sister gets to see Grandma. I wanted to see Grandma too. It's late now, so be patient. We'll be able to see Grandma from now on. It looks like your plan worked, didn't it? Yes, this way I managed to separate that man from Grandma. As I drove home, thinking about being able to meet Grandma again made me happy, and I found myself humming a tune. Later, my mother-in-law was admitted to the care facility. Mother, how are you feeling? Any changes? Yes, I've been feeling quite well recently. According to the staff at the facility, my mother-in-law had been somber and quiet right after admission. However, as my children and I began visiting, her mood lightened and she started talking more. With my mother-in-law in the facility, my ex-husband was left living alone at the family home. It seems he finally gave up on the new wife after her parents threatened to consult a lawyer. I'm just relieved he didn't become a stalker. However, the girl must have been quite frightened. While I understand his desire not to lose a young wife, as an adult, he should have known when to step back. Later, I learned that around the time my ex-husband started complaining and behaving strangely, he had made a major mistake at work. It was a big enough blunder to push him into a less influential position at his company. Feeling ostracized at work while I managed home affairs smoothly with family support apparently didn't sit well with him. As he began to complain, finding no allies at home either, he ended up relying on a teenager. Being relied upon by a younger person probably made him feel validated. Such childish reasons indeed. Also, it seems that not only his wife but also his mother had forsaken him. Nice to meet you. It's a lovely day, isn't it? Despite clearly remembering us, it seems my mother-in-law has forgotten that my ex-husband is her son. His childlike behavior led to our divorce and ultimately left him truly alone. Now alone, my ex-husband's mental state worsened, and he continued to make mistakes at work. One mistake led to another, resulting in demotion and pay cuts. Given his mental state, he probably should take a break from work, but he can't afford to. Since I took most of our savings in exchange for not fussing about the affair during our divorce, he's left without much money. Still, he needs to work to pay the child support for our 3 kids and the care facility fees for my mother-in-law. Being without support is a tough situation. To support the 3 kids, I found a job. Sean is still small, but Kristen and Ted help look after him. Having real support is truly reassuring.
Exiting the OBGYN were Jeff, my husband, and an unfamiliar woman. No way. Jeff, you were having an affair? I had witnessed my husband's affair. Moreover, it seemed his mistress was pregnant. In a panic, I approached them to ask what was going on, and she said, "I'm pregnant with your husband's child. Please divorce him quickly." Despite being in front of his real wife, she was utterly unfazed and selfishly asked for a separation. I was dumbfounded by Tracy's audacity. There was no point in staying married to Jeff under these circumstances. "All right," I said, "if that's what Jeff wants, let's do it." Then the two of them looked at each other, held hands, and began to celebrate. "So, we don't have to hide our trips anymore?"
Yay!
Huh? Trips? Actually, we're going on our honeymoon next week. I was going to lie and say I was on a business trip, but there's no need to sneak around anymore. Their forthrightness may have stemmed from my agreement to divorce. They felt free to say anything in my presence, revealing details I hadn't even asked for. Their selfish behavior continued thereafter. I had told Jeff we needed to talk, but he hadn't returned home in days. Were they planning to talk after returning from their trip? I had thought so until one day. Unbelievable. 33 filled-out divorce papers were mailed to me. Among them were photos of my husband and his mistress together, clearly meant to harass me. They clearly wanted a quick divorce, but why send these during their trip? They didn't give us a chance to talk, just sent these papers unilaterally. Rebecca, nice guts. Be prepared. Something snapped inside me. My name is Rebecca. I'm a nurse at a general hospital. I met Jeff 3 years ago at a friend's wedding. Unlike me, who is shy and not good at conversation, Jeff was the life of the party and stood out among the guests, which piqued my interest. After the reception, everyone moved to the venue for the after party, which was informal. I sat at the far end of an island table with Claire, a high school classmate. Then, Jeff sat down next to me. I hope it's okay, I sat next to you, he said. Despite my introverted panic, he continued to talk to me without hesitation. Do you have a boyfriend? No. Where do you work? Oh, right. How old are you? Are we the same age? He bombarded me with questions. When Jeff's friend noticed my discomfort, he teased Jeff. Dude, you're asking too many questions, she's shocked. His friend's comment made Jeff realize he might have scared me. And he blushed, apologizing, really sorry. I didn't mean to scare you. I was just curious. Man, he's been saying how cute you are since the ceremony. He's a good guy, give him your number. I was egged on by Jeff's friend. At that time, I didn't have a boyfriend or anyone I was interested in. So I agreed to exchange contact information with Jeff. When I agreed, Jeff showed a big smile, highlighting his dimples. Thank you. I'll definitely contact you. And he did the next day. Jeff invited me out for a meal. Alone, he seemed less boisterous and more hesitant. Do you have any favorite foods? He mumbled. Jeff was a bit shy, cute with his noticeable dimples. I started to find him adorable. After several dates, our relationship progressed. About 6 months later, Jeff proposed, and we quickly decided to marry. Once married, we moved in together, but I had some concerns. Hey, what about the wedding expenses and the rent? And other costs for living together? I brought it up indirectly, as it was hard to talk about. I work as a nurse and believe my salary is fairly high. However, Jeff works as an office clerk at a manufacturer. My salary and bonuses were significantly higher than his. And I wondered if he might feel uneasy about it. However, Jeff casually said, why not go halves? Right now, I earn less and honestly don't have much saved. But I'll try my best not to lose to you, Rebecca. My worries were unfounded, as Jeff seemed more positive than I expected. But I had another concern. You know, I have night shifts. I come home in the middle of the night or in the morning, and my work hours are irregular. Can you help with the household chores? My job as a nurse means irregular hours. Honestly, it's hard to manage without sharing household chores, which was crucial for me. Household chores. We should do them together, right? If you're okay with a guy cooking. I can cook and do the cleaning and laundry without much hassle. Let's work together. This reassurance was similar to our earlier conversation about salary. Jeff had lived alone before, so he was capable of handling chores without feeling burdened. He eased my fears, and we registered our marriage without any issues. Our friends and both families celebrated our new beginning, and we started our life together. Jeff kept his promise to actively do household chores. After a night shift, I'd return home to find pasta wrapped and waiting in the fridge. The cleaning and laundry were well taken care of. On days I cooked, Jeff would eat heartily, asking for seconds. Delicious. Is there more? On weekends, he would take me out on dates. We lived blissfully, just the two of us. All that was left was for us to have a child, for everything to be perfect. However, conceiving turned out to be more difficult than I had anticipated. Honestly, I had naively assumed that getting pregnant would be easy once we were married. It seems many people might think the same. But reality often proves otherwise. Even after a year of marriage, I had not become pregnant. I was 28 at the time, and I had hoped to have a couple of kids by the age of 30. A desire I had shared with Jeff before we married. However, Jeff didn't seem to be in a hurry, saying, "Let's not rush it." Perhaps he was right, as these things can't be forced. But my concern wasn't just about not rushing. Our intimacy had significantly decreased compared to when we were first married. No matter how much one might say it's out of our hands, without intimacy, there can be no children. Initially, we slept together in the same bedroom. But due to my job, I often came home in the middle of the night, frequently waking Jeff up. Eventually, Jeff suggested I wake up with even the slightest noise. Maybe we should sleep in separate bedrooms? This separation likely also played a role in our difficulty in conceiving. I began to feel somewhat depressed about our chances of having children. Still, our relationship wasn't bad, and I enjoyed my time with Jeff. So I tried not to dwell on it too much. However, 2 years into our marriage, I could feel our happiness beginning to crumble. "You're coming home late again today?"
Yeah.
"I have a drinking party tonight." "I see. What time will you be back?" "Not sure. Probably after midnight." "That's late." "Haven't the drinking parties been a bit too frequent lately?" Lately, Jeff's returns were very late, and his frequency of drinking parties had increased. He was often away on weekends for entertainment. And I felt disappointed about the lack of time we spent together as a couple. However, my husband dismissed my concerns, saying, "Rebecca, you're a woman, you don't understand the importance of these drinking parties. How much the bosses like me can really make a difference at work. Please don't complain about work-related matters." "I'm sorry." "Well, I'm heading out." Seemingly upset by my words, Jeff slammed the front door as he left. The vibration and air pressure from the door closing knocked over a photo frame on the entrance hall table, a picture of us smiling at our wedding. Left alone, I sighed deeply, and slowly set the photo frame upright before heading to work. I understood the importance of workplace relationships. But it wasn't just the late returns. Recently, Jeff's attitude towards me had clearly changed, causing me anxiety. Again, he didn't make dinner. Previously, Jeff would prepare meals before his work to ease my burden when I returned from night shifts. But that had stopped. Eventually, I had to prepare meals myself after a short nap. I also had to point out, "Why haven't you done the laundry?" The laundry basket was overflowing, yet it remained untouched. Today was supposed to be Jeff's turn to clean. What's the big deal? I was busy. It is a big deal. The basket is so full. Where am I supposed to put the clothes I wore today? Oh, stop nagging. If you're going to complain, just do it yourself. Jeff lay on the couch, fiddling with his phone and ignoring me. I ended up doing the laundry myself, as he made no move to help. This way, my household chores burden continued to grow. We had agreed to share household responsibilities before marriage and set rules together. But those rules had gradually fallen apart at Jeff's convenience. He had changed. He was always late due to overtime or drinking parties, and on weekends. He would go out alone, unlike before. He used to be so kind, but now even his tone had become harsher. I dreaded to think it, but a horrible thought crossed my mind: infidelity? No, I mustn't accuse my husband without evidence. I sternly dismissed the thought. But as time passed, Jeff continued to change, and I couldn't help but become suspicious. Hey, what is this? A colored lipstick, obviously for women, fell out of the suit Jeff wore to work. Oh. I bought some lip balm because my lips were dry. But it seems I accidentally picked up a colored one, he said, his eyes darting around nervously. Flustered, he quickly retreated to the bedroom. I'm tired, going to sleep. It was suspicious, but if he said it was a mistake, there was not much I could do. I had to back down this time. However, another day brought a new issue. Several thousands of dollars had been transferred from our joint account for living expenses to Jeff's personal account. Jeff, why is money from our living account being transferred to your account? I overspent this month. It's not a big deal. It is a big deal. Don't use it without asking. We need to save for the future. Another lecture? Sorry, I'll be careful. After saying this, he retreated to his bedroom again. Yet, in the following months, he continued to withdraw money without my consent. Jeff, did you use our house money again? I asked you to stop, didn't I? It doesn't matter. We don't have kids anyway. I almost yelled, that's because you're not interested in having them. But I held back, biting my tongue. It's not just about that. I don't understand why you need to spend $1,000 to $2,000 a month just because we don't have kids. What are you spending it on? Why do I have to explain every penny I spend to you? Jeff snapped back, getting defensive. Even when we're arguing like this, Jeff never puts down his smartphone. He keeps it with him even when going to the bathroom or taking a bath. It's like his wife is not me, but his smartphone. Can't you just put down your phone for once during such times? Look at me and talk. I couldn't help but get emotional too. Enough. You're so annoying. Just let me be. Saying this, he retreated to his room while still looking at his smartphone. He says he wants freedom, but isn't he already doing whatever he wants? Where did the husband I loved go? I haven't seen his dimpled smile, which I loved, in who knows how long. When he's home, he's always irritable. The trace of his kindness has completely vanished. What do I even like about this man anymore? I feel my feelings for Jeff cooling down more and more. I spend my days questioning whether I should divorce him. Then one day, Claire, a friend from nursing school, contacted me. Want to catch up over a meal? It's been a while. Yes. I'd love to. It's been so long, hasn't it? Where should we meet? At your place like usual, or my house? Actually, it'd be better near my workplace this time. Sorry, but could you come here? And how about around 3 p.m.? Claire, though she works in a different hospital, is a nurse like me. She suggested meeting at a cafe near the OBGYN where she works. Usually, when Claire and I meet, we just hang out at one of our homes and have a leisurely meal, but this time was different. Though it struck me as odd to meet at 3 p.m., neither lunch nor dinner time. I didn't dwell on it much since I was looking forward to seeing Claire. On the day I was supposed to meet Claire, I arrived at the designated cafe to find her looking unusually somber. Is something wrong? I asked Claire, sensing her serious mood. After a moment of silence, she spoke heavily. Don't ask anything, just look outside the window for a while. Outside the window, I could clearly see the OBGYN where Claire works. I vaguely understood what she meant, and we both stared out the window in silence for a while. Then, the moment came. As I watched, I saw Jeff, my husband, wrapping his arm around an unfamiliar woman's waist and entering the OBGYN together. The woman next to him appeared to have a slightly swollen belly. I see. Yeah, I kind of had a feeling something was going on. My eyes began to well up with tears, and my grip tightened on my coffee cup. Claire, it's such a nice day today, isn't it? Really warm, and the temperature is just perfect. As I said this, tears started rolling down my cheeks. Rebecca. Claire held my hand. She probably didn't want to know either that a friend's husband was having an affair. Claire had been at the wedding where my husband and I met and was right there when Jeff first talked to me. So she knew his face and name well. She had seen him come to the OBGYN with another woman and had contacted me. I'm going to head back now. As much as you're my friend, I can't just disclose patient information carelessly. I'm sorry, I can't do more. You should talk to Jeff. Claire, thank you so much. I'll talk to him. No worries. Call me if you need anything, okay? I'm always on your side. And don't let him see you crying. Wipe your tears before you go. Saying this, Claire wiped my tears with her handkerchief. She had always been like an older sister to me. I thanked her again and waited outside the OBGYN for them to come out. After a while, when they appeared, I hurried over to them. Jeff, congratulations on her pregnancy. You two look great together, I said, forcing a smile. The two of them looked shocked and turned to each other. Jeff, is this your wife? She didn't seem to know who I was and asked Jeff, who turned pale. Wah, what are you? Despite usually only looking at his smartphone, now he was staring at me with wide eyes. What's the matter? Weren't you at work today? I smiled sweetly and asked my husband, who stuttered, trying to think of an excuse. Then he blurted out, no, you see, she's just a friend's girlfriend. And I came with her as a companion. What a transparent lie. Faced with such a strained excuse, I couldn't help but sigh loudly. But Tracy snapped, annoyed by Jeff's attempt to casually handle the situation. Jeff, you said we were going to divorce, didn't you? Well, yes, but I haven't really talked about it yet. Oh? You said you were going to divorce? That's news to me. Jeff, you haven't said anything? Caught between his wife and his mistress, Jeff was at a loss for words. Let's not do this here. How about we move somewhere else? I led them back to the cafe where I had been with Claire. We each ordered a cup of coffee and took a moment to calm down. During this time, Jeff looked down, refusing to meet my gaze. Today, it seems Jeff regards the desk, not his smartphone, as his wife. However, Tracy is directly looking into my eyes. My name is Tracy. I'm in a relationship with Jeff, and as you just saw, I am pregnant with his child. Please divorce him immediately. In front of his actual wife, without flinching, the mistress asked for a divorce, leaving me so stunned that I stopped mid-motion while trying to take a sip of my drink. Tracy's eyes were intensely serious. It was as if she considered me the final boss, fully ready for battle. To not be overwhelmed by Tracy, I clenched my fists under the table, maintaining my composure, and asked, how long have you and Jeff been involved? Since a year ago. A year ago. That's when Jeff's sudden increase in overtime started. It was also around that time that he began to grow cold towards me. He became distant because of her. The lipstick in his pocket, the withdrawals from our joint account, all because of Tracy. Now that I think about it, it all adds up too well. The dots were connecting in my mind. So it's been a year. And what does Jeff want? Upon hearing this, Tracy glared sharply at Jeff. Startled by her gaze, Jeff flinched. It seemed he was pretty much under Tracy's thumb. Despite his usually arrogant demeanor at home, frustration welled up inside me. Well, if it's out, then there's no choice. Let's get a divorce. It's unfortunate, but what can we do? There's a baby on the way. Exactly. For the baby's sake, please divorce us right away. Both my husband and his mistress, perhaps emboldened, began pressing me for a divorce. My feelings for Jeff had indeed been cooling. But why should I let them dictate the timing of our divorce? You too. As I tried to speak, Tracy cut in, since I've entered a stable period of my pregnancy. We plan to go on a honeymoon next week, before the baby arrives. Hey, don't say that. A honeymoon? They planned this even before we divorced. Truly unbelievable. Everything's out in the open now, isn't it? Well, that's true. Rebecca, that's what's happening. We're going on a honeymoon next week. I was going to lie and say I was on a business trip. Their statements were so absurd that I almost lost track of what they were saying. Was my husband always this foolish? Feeling somewhat detached now, I said, "Sure, go ahead." Upon hearing this, they looked at each other and burst into smiles, beginning to hold hands. Really? That's great, Tracy. We're free now. Can I stop hiding it? Can I post lots of pictures with Jeff on social media? Well, hold on, social media's tricky. You never know who's watching. It wouldn't be great if people found out I got someone else pregnant right after the divorce. You want to hide our relationship? That's awful. Sorry. I didn't mean to make you mad. Somehow, they started a lover's quarrel right in front of me. What was I even witnessing? Well, I'm going. Jeff, let's sort out the necessary procedures later. I said this and left the cafe, leaving them behind. Tracy really seems like a handful. I thought, almost as if it were someone else's problem. As I headed home, no longer caring about any of it. That night, Jeff didn't return home. Not just that night, but a week passed without him returning. Despite his demands for a divorce, we couldn't even talk about it if he didn't come home. As I pondered this, looking at the calendar, I remembered they had gone on their trip starting yesterday. Maybe he plans to talk about the divorce after they return, I reasoned. However, that day, a thick envelope arrived at home. It was from Jeff Thompson, my husband's name. Opening the envelope, I was baffled to find it stuffed with dozens of divorce papers, 33 to be exact. Moreover, 15 of them had photos of Jeff and Tracy enjoying themselves pasted on them. And on another 17, messages like, "Divorce quickly, I put plenty in so you can't mess it up." And, "For our child, get rid of the old lady," were scrawled as if struck by a blow. There were also notes like, "Your house belongs to me and our child now." How does that even make sense? Fury bubbled up inside me at the outrageous contents. And, they had the audacity to send this during their trip? Not even giving us a chance to talk, just sending this stuff, trying to force a divorce? Nice guts. Be prepared. Something snapped inside me. Not sure if Jeff knew about the mass mailing, but since he had signed them, I could file for divorce, right? I immediately went to the lawyer's office and submitted the divorce papers. Later, possibly after returning from the trip, my now ex-husband called. "Hey. What the hell is this?" He was panicking as soon as he picked up the phone. I could guess why he was so flustered, but I deliberately asked, is something wrong? Something wrong? I come back from a trip, and when I finally go home, there's a demolition crew at our house. What the hell is going on? Explain this to me. In fact, on the day I filed the divorce papers, I had a mind to teach Jeff and Tracy a lesson. I remembered Tracy claiming the house. That woman said she'd take our house, huh? Thinking it would serve them right and be the most effective revenge, I said, "Mother, I need to talk to you." And had been discussing my husband's misconduct with my in-laws. Despite our strained relationship, I had always gotten along well with my in-laws and thought they might help. When I explained the situation to my in-laws, they were furious and told me to send all of Jeff's belongings to their house. The in-laws were absolutely livid to think he would get his mistress pregnant. He should really be taught a painful lesson. They promised to help with anything. I immediately shipped my ex-husband's belongings to his parents' house. Now, it would be up to the in-laws to handle things. I also moved all my belongings and finalized the procedures to demolish the house and clear the site. By the time my ex-husband returned, the demolition had already begun. In just another week, it will all be cleared up, it seems. What? I heard from Tracy that she was getting the house. So I had it demolished to prevent that from happening. It's impossible to think of you, that woman, and her child living there happily together. Don't mess around. How can you just do that? That house and the land it's on belong to my father. You, an outsider, can't just decide to do something like that. Yes, I know that. That's why I discussed it with your father. He said that a foolish son who cheats and gets someone pregnant doesn't deserve a house. He told me to tear it down. You told my parents. Yes, I told them everything. That you had an affair and that she is pregnant. They were quite angry, you know. What have you done? I was supposed to start living with Tracy and the child next week. I don't know about that. Oh, and since we are already divorced, don't call me again. If you need something, contact me through a lawyer. When did we get divorced? I didn't hear anything about that. And what's this about a lawyer? What? A huge stack of divorce papers arrived from Tracy. I filed them immediately. And thanks to all the evidence photos of the affair that Tracy included with the divorce papers, the divorce proceedings went smoothly. Tell her thanks for me. She did what? What is she doing? Please, we're going to have a child, and now we've lost our home. And Tracy only has a part-time job, we really don't have any money. Don't ask for compensation, please. I've already told you, I don't know about that. I'll be seeking a generous amount of compensation from you and Tracy. Just so you're prepared.
Bye.
Then, I said this and hung up without waiting for a reply. By now, my ex-husband must be wearing a miserable expression. It's a pity I couldn't see his face directly. But this should make him painfully aware of how terrible his actions were. Despite his repeated calls, I ignored them all. Later, my ex-husband was ordered to pay $25,000 in compensation. I doubted he could easily afford such a large amount from his savings. But I made sure through my lawyer that he would pay no matter what. He would probably turn to his parents for help, but since they said, "We have no intention of helping a son who cheated," he likely wouldn't receive any support from them. He got what he deserved. As for Tracy, because she sent those provocative divorce papers and photos and engaged in adultery knowing Jeff was married, I managed to get $10,000 in damages from her. I thought they would start afresh, Jeff, Tracy, and the unborn child. But it didn't work out between them. Because Tracy posted photos on social media of their vacation while still technically married to Jeff. Their affair quickly became public knowledge. The gossip spread, eventually reaching Jeff's workplace, causing a huge scandal. Jeff was furious that she posted on social media despite his warnings. But when he scolded her, Tracy lost her temper in turn. In the end, their petty quarrel led to their breakup. What a foolish story, I thought, but how they lived their lives was no longer my concern. I continued working as a nurse. Though divorced and single, somehow, I felt more at peace than when I was married. Work is busy and challenging, but every time a patient thanks me, I feel fulfilled and glad to be doing this job. After everything was settled, I contacted Claire, who had been so supportive. I got divorced. It's all over. You did well, she said, crying. Having such a kind friend who would cry for me made me feel truly fortunate. Claire and I promised to go on a girls' trip together. I might be wary of love for a while, but someday, I hope to meet a kind man who will cherish me.
Hey, is that you, Angela? Turning around at the voice while having coffee with my family at a cafe, there was my ex-husband Ted. Beside him stood Erica, the woman who took him away from me. Oh. What, you got married? I just glared at him in silence. Then he said, oh right, still single, huh? The infertile defective product. Are you planning to remarry with someone who has kids? A remarriage would suit you well. Ted seemed to find this situation amusing as he said these things. I stood up abruptly, slamming the table. Excuse me? Who are you calling infertile? What, it's not true. Just kidding around. Ted chuckled. We left the cafe feeling sick. As we were leaving, a girl who looked like their daughter passed by us. Ms. Powell. The girl called out loudly as she ran towards me. Panting, she said. I'm Michelle, his daughter. I have something very important to tell you, Ms. Powell. My name is Angela Powell, 45 years old. I live with my 3 years younger husband, Robert, our daughter Sarah, and my in-laws, making it a family of 5. Robert is a chef, and I'm in a sort of sales job. We're both somewhat workaholics. I sometimes wonder if this makes Sarah feel lonely. However, living with the in-laws who understand our work and are kind yet strict with Sarah allows us to focus on our jobs. Occasionally, on our days off, my husband showcases his exquisite cooking. Sarah envies his skills, and whenever there's a chance, she learns cooking from him. But 17 years ago, I couldn't have imagined such happy days would come my way. Because for me, Robert is my second husband. I divorced 17 years ago. My ex was Ted Walters, a colleague who was 5 years my senior. In my 20s, after getting married, I moved from sales to general affairs, continuing to work while being a housewife. I thought I was having a fairly good marriage life, but apparently, I was the only one who thought so. Because one day, Ted suddenly demanded a divorce. Hey, what's going on? Why suddenly? I was shocked as I was confronted with the divorce papers. I didn't understand what was happening. Then, Ted looked more serious than ever before. You know, you still haven't had any kids, right? I was surprised. Ted had never mentioned such a thing since we got married. However, my mother-in-law had often urged us. Living with my in-laws, for 3 years after marriage, I was constantly nagged about having children. But I thought I had kept this from Ted as much as possible. I was concerned about not being able to have children. However, I felt that forcing fertility treatments wouldn't immediately change the situation. It would happen when it could. I thought so, but that was naive. Are you divorcing me because I can't have children? That's not the only reason. I had a bad feeling then. Remember Erica? Your coworker from the sales department? I remember her. What about her? Just as I had a thought, Ted spoke. Look, Erica is pregnant with my child. What? I was at a loss for words. Everything was a complete shock to me. Not only that Ted was having an affair, but that it was with Erica, my coworker. You're divorcing me because she's pregnant? I can't accept being told unilaterally to divorce. I argued as strongly as I could. But Ted said nonchalantly. But Mom agrees with it. At that moment, I realized that was where the conversation had originated. When I pressed for confirmation, yes, I support Ted being with Erica, my mother-in-law answered simply. Why? Doesn't that mean Ted cheated on me? Can you really accept that? Yes, I can. I was at a loss for words to her response. Because you've shown no signs of having children. I've been worried about you all this time. But, from their point of view, maybe it was a concern. You two never said you weren't trying. So it must be an issue with your body. And Ted continued. See, I told you. Mom just wanted to see her grandkids. And since there was no sign of that happening with you, it couldn't be helped, right? Saying this, Ted pushed the divorce papers in front of me, dumbfounded. I resigned myself to the fact that I had no place left to go, and signed and stamped the divorce papers. Looking back, I should have insisted on a fair division of assets and demanded alimony at that time. But I wasn't in a state to make sound decisions then. The reason for our divorce spread quickly at the company. Meanwhile, Erica quit her job and seemed to easily settle into being a full-time housewife after her pregnancy. As for me, instead of being seen as a poor woman who was cheated on, rumors spread that I was unattractive enough to lose my husband. Eventually, I quit the company. Unable to bear the curious glances and rumors, I withdrew into a small apartment where I moved. But I couldn't just hide forever, hunger drove me outside. Not being particularly skilled in cooking, one day I ventured out and was drawn to the smell of stew from a small restaurant. As I stared at the menu for a long time, the cook's voice asked me what I'd like to order. It seemed I had been looking at the menu for quite a while. That's when I realized how tired I was feeling. As I ate, I couldn't help but cry and sniffle. Yet, as I quietly continued eating, the cook placed extra napkins in front of me. That cook was Robert, who would later become my husband. From then on, I frequented his restaurant, and we eventually started dating. Even though I was an older divorcee, our feelings for each other didn't change, and we got married relatively quickly. Soon after our marriage, I discovered I was pregnant with our daughter, Sarah. Unlike my previous in-laws, Robert's parents were wonderful people. I am truly grateful to my in-laws, who treat me like their own daughter as my parents live far away. They even encouraged me to work if I didn't want to stay home all the time. I ended up helping at the restaurant, where they needed more hands, and I took over the accounting part, which the owner disliked. Later, the owner retired due to health issues, and Robert, whose skills were recognized, took over the restaurant. For over a decade since then, both our work and parenting went smoothly. One day, Robert, Sarah, and I were cafe hopping. It was half enjoyment, half study for us. While discussing things like, "This menu is good," and "Maybe this place should reconsider their portion sizes," we heard a familiar voice. "Hey, isn't that Angela?" Turning around at the voice, there was Ted, a man I had almost forgotten. And next to him was, "Ah, it really is Angela. Remember me? It's Erica." A woman, sounding childishly sweet despite her age. Erica was there. If I remember correctly, she was 5 years younger than me, so she should be around 40 now. Still trying to look younger than her age, her fashion and makeup were somewhat inappropriate. "It's been a while," I responded in a stiff voice. Seeing my expression, Robert and Sarah looked worried. Then Ted pressed on. "Oh. What, you got married?" I just glared at him silently. Then he said, "Oh right, still single, huh? The infertile defective product. Are you planning to remarry with someone who has kids? A remarriage would suit you well." Ted seemed to find this situation amusing as he said these things. Robert and Sarah looked bewildered by his off-target comments. I stood up, slamming the table. Excuse me? Who are you calling infertile? What? Angela, why are you suddenly getting angry? What, isn't it true? You can't have kids, so you married someone with kids, right? What is wrong with these people? I gestured towards Robert and Sarah and finally spoke firmly. That's not true. I married this man a long time ago, and this child is the one I gave birth to. Come on, lying again. Ted chuckled. I was appalled. How could he keep ignoring my words and insist I was infertile? Shall we leave here? Robert suggested as he saw my distress. Sarah also looked uneasy. Yes, let's go. I don't want anything to do with this. Oh right, so this seat will be free then. Hey, come over here. As we were about to leave, a high school-aged girl approached the entrance somewhat timidly. Ah, that must be the child Erica was pregnant with back then. I thought this as I passed by the girl. Let's forget about this place and head to the next cafe. Yes, let's enjoy some coffee properly this time. We checked the map, and just then, the girl shouted. Ms. Powell. As she ran towards us, breathing heavily. Panting, she said. I'm Michelle, his daughter. Ms. Powell, I have something very important to tell you. She appealed to me desperately. And that was the first step in changing our fate. 6 months later, I was heading to a building for a meeting. My destination was a company on an upper floor. Excuse me, I have an appointment with Daniel, the sales director. Sorry to keep you waiting, Miss Powell. He started to say, then paused with a realization. Could it be, Ms. Norman? Daniel, the sales director, called me by my maiden name. Yes, this is the company where I used to work. Yes, it's been a long time, Daniel. I gave a bright smile to my former boss. So, the tenant moving in downstairs is? Yes, it's my shop. Oh. What a surprise. Daniel reacted with a bit of an exaggerated surprise. I'm really sorry about back then. I couldn't do anything. Daniel, you were in a different department back then, and I think it was impossible for you to stop those tactless people. Yes, that's true. But I still feel bad about the unpleasant experiences I caused you, being his boss and all. Just then, Ted Walters, who seemed to have returned from a sales visit, entered the floor. Angela, why are you here? Did you come because you met me the other day? I just silently watched Ted, who still dared to joke in such a place. Does he realize his boss is nearby? Hey, you aren't thinking of getting back together, are you? Hey, what are you saying? Daniel said this while calming Ted down. It seemed that Ted finally realized that I was with my former boss. He quickly wore a solemn expression in apology. Ms. Powell is here today for a business discussion. A business discussion? You know the tenant space on the first floor that's been vacant for a while? Now that you mention it. My shop will be moving in there. Ted Walters looked puzzled. Wait a minute. Isn't a famous coffee chain supposed to be moving into that tenant space? Yes, that's right, isn't it, Daniel? I turned the conversation to Daniel. Yes, that's right. Everyone's been looking forward to that store moving in. So what, you joined the sales department of that chain store? No. I paused briefly before continuing. It's my shop, any problem with that? Ted Walters looked even more confused. Hey, Ted, I don't know what you're misunderstanding, but didn't I tell you that today's visitor is Miss Powell, the owner of that chain store? The owner? Ted shouted, then looked back and forth between Mr. Daniel and me, sweating. Listen, Ted. Today is strictly about business discussions. Be respectful. Sorry about this, Ms. Powell. No worries. Although today is for business, I actually wanted to offer some of our coffee for the people at this company to try. As soon as I said this, there was a sudden buzz around the floor. Wait, are you treating us to coffee from that store? The young office lady reacted quickly. Yes, that's right. I hope you all will become our most valued customers, and I look forward to a long relationship. Today, before the shop officially opens, I would like to offer you a taste. Please feel free to visit the shop afterwards. I looked at Daniel and said, "Is that okay with you, Daniel?" Daniel responded, "Yes, let's happily accept the invitation. Everyone, let's go." Almost everyone on the floor, except for a few who stayed behind, headed down together. "Welcome," said the new store manager, greeting. Our staff, who had been waiting, greeted the employees. "Please, everyone, have a seat wherever you like," I said, and the employees began to take their seats with unusual eagerness. Our coffee isn't incredibly unique. It's more affordable and simpler than a certain well-known coffee shop that's heavy on toppings. Our selling points are a clear menu and delicious meals. We offer takeout for those who want it at lunch and a slightly pricier but tasty dinner option. The success of our first store, which crafted such a menu, led to its prosperity. After it became successful, we trained staff and expanded our stores, and now I am the president of a coffee chain with an annual turnover of $50 million. So, how about this spot over here for you folks? I invited Daniel and Ted to a table somewhat removed from the others. Then, several people stood up. What? Ted was surprised by their appearance. Wait, Michelle, why are you here? Why? Well. Michelle snorted and continued. Because I'm a customer today too. But, isn't this place only for related personnel today? Ted hurriedly replied. Because I'm also involved today. Oh, and by the way, Dad, my other father is here too. Ted seemed not to immediately grasp the meaning of his daughter's words. Michelle continued, ignoring her father's puzzled look. Let me introduce you. This is Jeff Morris, my real father. Ted looked even more confused by what was being said. Well, it's understandable that you wouldn't know, Dad. We need one more guest to arrive here. Saying this, Michelle turned towards the display window. Beyond it, a woman was hurriedly walking towards us, looking around anxiously. It was Erica, trying to look excessively young, just like when we had reunited half a year ago. Erica, in a panic, opened the door and exclaimed, "Michelle, where's Michelle?" As she rushed over. Here comes another guest. Mom, over here. Michelle said calmly. Hearing her voice, Erica turned and quickly approached, her face registering shock. Michelle, why are you with this man? She asked with a trembling voice. Why? Because he's also my father. Michelle continued, her voice steady in front of her stunned mother. Watching the two of them, Ted seemed to finally understand the situation. Hey Erica, do you know anything about this? Do you have a relationship with this man? I don't know him. I don't know this man at all. She vigorously shook her head, trying to flee the scene, but Robert and I stopped her. Since you've come all this way, why not stay for a cup of coffee? I offered Erica a chair and signaled to the staff to bring some coffee. Indeed, our coffee has been quite popular lately. You really should have a cup before you go, I said, practically forcing her to take a seat. What a brave young woman, despite being only 16, I thought to myself. Yes, that day, Michelle had chased after us to seek advice. The reason she came to me was that she had heard I was once her father's wife. Her concern, as we sat down in a newly entered cafe, was about a man claiming to be her real father. I understand that you divorced my father because I was born. Who told you that? My grandmother. My former mother-in-law. She had actually gone out of her way to tell her granddaughter such a thing. It seemed just like her. Have you discussed this with anyone else? Michelle replied she hadn't talked to anyone about it. Is it all right for you to discuss such important matters with me, almost a stranger? Haven't you talked to your mother about it? I don't want to. I don't trust my mom, especially when it comes to relationships with men. Michelle said this matter-of-factly. Because I can't trust my mom, I thought maybe this man could really be my father. She was referring to Jeff, who was with us today. Initially skeptical, she grew more convinced as they talked about gifts he mentioned giving her in the past. When I was younger, my mom would suddenly give me expensive clothes and accessories, always when my dad was away on business trips. As a child, she was merely happy to receive such special gifts, but as she grew older, she started to feel something was off. During a conversation with Jeff, she asked if he ever sent her gifts. Jeff immediately smiled, pleased to hear that she had received them. Further questioning revealed that Jeff remembered the details and timing of these gifts well, matching Michelle's memories. So, I decided to ask for a DNA test with him. Hearing this, I was struck by how strong she was to initiate such a step herself. But saying that, what do you think about your parents? I don't really care about my father. He's rarely home, and I don't even know if it's because of his job. Ted, it seems, had become an indifferent parent, despite using the desire for children as a reason to leave me. Michelle's next words surprised me even more. Mom might be dating someone, I'm not sure, but there's definitely another man she likes. I saw them together coming home in a taxi recently. Her sarcastic tone was painful to hear. But you were with your family at the cafe recently, weren't you? That was just for show. Dad forced us to go, calling it family time. In contrast, your family seemed genuinely happy. She said this with a hint of sadness. Excuse me for asking, but isn't your daughter a stepchild? Absolutely not. This child was born to me. I hugged Sarah as I spoke firmly. Then that time, Dad was really rude to you. I've heard about it since then. Yes. In the past, your father and grandmother used that as a reason to force a divorce on me. But after I remarried, I had this child immediately and have been living happily ever since. I had completely forgotten about your family, to be honest. I didn't even recognize them immediately. Is that so? I'm envious. Hearing this, I felt compelled to help her. It seemed that family was still troubled, as always. Over the past 6 months, I had been present during meetings between Michelle and Jeff, ultimately arranging for today's meeting. It's really been a while, Erica. Jeff Morris laughed as he said this. I don't know anything about you. Erica said this in a flustered manner. Well, I must have changed a lot too. But DNA doesn't change. With that, Jeff presented Ted and Erica with a DNA test result. Both took it and looked intently. The results showed no parental relationship between Michelle and Ted, but a nearly 100% match with Jeff. Realizing the implication, Ted suddenly looked at Erica, his complexion changing. Erica, seeing his reaction, became visibly more anxious. No, this is a lie, it's forged. Jeff replied. Then I think you should test as many times as you want. Well, I believe it will be the same no matter how many times you test it. In fact, here are the results from several tests. He smoothly pulled out more test results, presumably from different agencies. At this, Erica lunged at Michelle. How could you do this to me? What do you mean, how could I? Where did you come from today, Mom? What are you saying? Then, Michelle rummaged through her bag, took out her smartphone, and after a few taps, turned the screen towards Erica. I received this. Displayed were images of Erica entering and leaving a hotel with another man. It's been photoshopped. It has to be. No, that's not the case. Jeff said. How can you say that? What gives you the right? Because I am not interested in taking this child from you. You can't possibly do that. Erica exclaimed. I can if the parent-child relationship is proven. And, Mr. Walters, can you really handle the fact that she has been deceiving you all along? Ted was at a loss for words. Cuckolded? At his voice, the whispering office ladies started to murmur among themselves. Indeed, I had invited company people here to make this issue known. Daniel came over to calm the office ladies. Ted, what is this all about? I don't know. I'd like to know myself. Sweat was visible on Ted's forehead. But you, Ted, left Miss Powell to marry your current wife, and now you're causing trouble at home again? That's a bit unbecoming for someone who's supposed to be an executive. What do you mean? Ted looked around nervously and suddenly yelled. Stop looking at me. In reality, no one was openly staring at him, they were merely glancing discreetly. However, for Ted, even those fleeting glances felt piercing. Erica, seeing her husband's distress, became visibly unsettled. What does this mean? What should we do? It's about time for you to come forward. It's your turn. Signaling with that, a man from a distant table approached. This is the lawyer I've hired. I'm prepared to dispute the recognition and custody of this child. What about you? Ted was speechless, frozen in place. Jeff continued to press him. Is there something wrong? You've been raising another man's child all this time. Doesn't that upset you? It's upsetting, yes. But, without a child, my mother. Oh, right. I blurted out. You were always weak to your mother, weren't you? The murmurs around grew a bit louder. The office ladies whispered. Ted has always been a mama's boy. Michelle, what do you want? You won't betray me, your father, right? As Ted frantically spoke, Michelle pondered. Honestly, it doesn't really matter to me. Ted was visibly shocked by her words. Perhaps he had loved his daughter in his own way, and her indifference cut deep. You know, Dad, I think you're just too oblivious. Not just about Mom, but about me too. What do you mean? I've been meeting with this dad for over half a year. You didn't know anything, did you? I knew you weren't interested in me. Maybe you were too busy with work. But how could you not notice Mom's affair? What have you been working for? Sweat started dripping down Ted's cheeks. Now, let's not say things we can't take back. It was Jeff who calmed the situation. I understand. Even if I disappeared, this dad wouldn't run to look for me, he'd do it for Grandma. You always say, good grades, Grandma will be happy, or being smart must be our genes, never mentioning anything from Mom's side. Hearing this, Erica turned her head away from her daughter. So, Dad, you just wanted a child for Grandma's sake, right? What do you say? Ted was lost for words. Michelle's face fell slightly. See. This is the kind of person he is, she said to Jeff. At that moment, Erica suddenly shouted. Michelle. What are you saying? Your father has been working hard for us every day. The same dad you easily betray, Mom? You didn't notice either. Well, yeah, I wasn't home much anyway. And when I brought it up, Mr. Morris checked it for me. Checked it? Yes. The lawyer responded. Mr. Morris asked me to investigate your affair. We used a detective agency and secured solid evidence. Those photos earlier are just part of it. My goodness. Daniel sighed as he watched the chaos unfold. To think you've caused all this trouble. Ted, you were excellent at your job in sales, but it turns out you can't even manage your own home. No, but it's not my fault. Ted's words grew weaker. Jeff pressed further. So, what will you do? As I said before, I'm ready to fight this. As he was speaking, Ted suddenly collapsed. Call an ambulance. The room erupted into chaos. It seemed Ted couldn't handle everything crashing down around him all at once. There's no helping it. Let's discuss this calmly later. Suddenly, Erica turned to Jeff and spat bitterly. You've come up in the world, using lawyers and detectives so easily. You're not like you used to be. That's right. Jeff answered matter-of-factly. That's because I got rid of a gold-digging disaster like you. I've found better finances, a better job, and a wonderful wife. Hearing this, Erica slumped her shoulders right there. I apologize for causing a scene. Please enjoy your time. I smiled at the office ladies who were keenly watching the drama unfold. After that, it wasn't long before Ted and Erica divorced. My former mother-in-law was furious with Erica for several reasons. One was obviously the cuckolding, but another was the revelation that Ted was infertile, a fact he hadn't even bothered to check himself, which fueled his mother's rage. After the storm settled, she visibly aged rapidly. Apparently, she even began showing signs of dementia. She needed care, and it was certain. Given his poor management at home and the recent family drama, he was sidelined in his job, Daniel informed me. Honestly, for Ted now, that sideline position might be all he can handle. The several shocks had severely affected his mental health. Having always believed he was right, to learn not only that I wasn't infertile but that he was sterile, and that his beloved daughter had so readily written him off, was too much. It seems that a multitude of issues suddenly overwhelmed him, and the tension he had maintained to confidently navigate through society abruptly snapped. On the other hand, Erica tried to turn to her affair partner after the divorce, but he desperately claimed it was a fling, that he hadn't known she was married or her real age, and somehow slipped away. Apparently, Erica had been pretending to be 10 years younger during her affairs. When her lover found out her real age, the disgust was evident, the lawyer told me. After being abandoned, Erica tried to turn to her parents but was rejected and soon found herself utterly without refuge. A woman who had secretly cheated while playing the devoted homemaker was left with nothing. I think it's best that she experiences the full consequences of her actions. Michelle, however, was taken in by her biological father and his wife. They pleaded with her to stay with them, even if just until she was an adult. Mr. Morris's wife had been unable to have children, and over 6 months, she and Michelle had grown close. A child should have no sins, she deserves happiness from here on out. Meanwhile, the new store prospered, perhaps because of the little drama, and we became good friends with the company upstairs. To the office ladies, the story of a divorced wife who managed to become the president of a chain store was something of an aspiration. It feels a bit funny being seen that way, but times have changed, I think. And Michelle and my daughter Sarah keep in touch, oddly enough. Kids make friends in the strangest ways, despite the rivalry between their mothers. Robert watches over such a family with a warm gaze. As I cherish this family, I intend to work hard and live happily, thinking of both my career and my home.